and I want to welcome you to another segment of Beyond the Surface Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Wanda J. Evans-Brewer, and this afternoon is actually a wonderful Sunday. I normally don't have a podcast on Sunday, but I have the blessing of a young woman named LaThelma C.Armstrong. She's a young woman that shared a song on Facebook that is a remix of a very popular Beyonce song. And I wanted to talk to her about flipping the script. So I want to welcome you, LaThelma.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited, and some of it is it's nice to see flipping the script, seeing people that actually take a lot of secular conversation and consider the lyrics and then do something special with it. So I wanted to understand, first of all, who are you and what inspired you to do that?
Well, currently I am pursuing a Master's of Divinity at Princeton Theological Seminary. I'm a first-year student, and I'm with a concentration in women's studies. And I've been praise and worship leading for a long time. And so I just love music, and I think music is just a way to do ministry and to really reach masses of people that you would never come into contact with culturally, geographically, a range of different demographics. And so when I heard the Drunk in Love song by Beyonce, I loved the song. I played it a number of times, but I was in a season over Christmas break where I was trying to fast.
Okay.
And just really trying to get into a more central place with God. And I have been reflecting on God's grace and mercy because I think I had a tumultuous relationship with Christianity growing up just because it was just a lot of emphasis on living right and having a righteous life. And sometimes that puts a lot of pressure on you and you feel very condemned when you're not able to live up to the standards that were set for you. And so just in this season, I feel like God's grace has just proven evident in my life. And when I was at home trying to fast and pray, my sister was just playing the Drunk in Love song constantly. And it was like, messing with my spirit. It's a different kind of song. It is not what you should be listening to trying to pray. And so when I heard the song, I just needed to remake it because I could not concentrate. And that's genuinely what was going on in my mind. And so I was just like, Lord, just give me the words to just, get this song out of my head so I can really focus on you. And so that's what inspired the lyrics of the song. That's what inspired the song to come about. And then when I wrote it and I was listening to it, I was like, well, I can't get this out of my spirit. I was like, this song is just so powerful to me. And so I shared it with a couple of my friends, and they also felt similar sentiments. And so 2 months later, I said, I was going to share it with the internet community, and it just blew up, and I was just very grateful and excited to see what God was doing. So I definitely believe that God's hand was, all on that project, and it was definitely something that God wanted to send to his children. So that's what happened.
Well, one of the things that I was excited about, what I read that you said, this isn't an attack by any means on Beyonce, and the fact that you have a very open and progressive sense of the coming of age, women coming of age and their need to have space for, the expression of sexuality. Some would say that's sort of in conflict with Scripture. I actually was excited to hear you express that only because one of my big complaints over the years have been I hate that many churches I visit just avoid the fact that God has given us our sex as a gift. Whether we pervert it or exploit it, that's a whole different other topic. But also, the sexiest book in the Bible, is the Song of Solomon. And I've only met a few pastors that, that really have the heart, and maybe it's for a good reason, that they just sort of avoid touching on, because it is a very sexy book. So, that was kind of refreshing because, you're a young person making sense of your coming of age. This is your world, this millennium place. So when you say that, but then you also said, hey, I still think there's a question about being drunk doing anything. What did you mean by that?
I think I'm trying to reflect back on that because I was on a rant. I was on my soapbox when I was talking about that. Well, I guess I think that we need to be careful with the kinds of metaphors that we use, especially like within our generation. So when we say like drunken love, like love is something that I believe that we need to be conscious of, and it's something that we are conscious of, like, and it's something that we need to be fully active and aware of. Like love is not something that just should take over you and you're not aware of it. And so I don't think you should be drunk at anything, that you need to be wise and guided by God in everything that you participate in, whether it's relationships, romantic relationships, whether it's like your academics, anything in your life, you need to be conscious of and be very deliberate about. And so I think that's more so what I was getting at. And also I think that when we're talking about Beyonce, you know, sexuality or just sexuality in general in reference to the church, I think that we do talk about sexuality, but more so from the male perspective. Like, right, women are portrayed as these asexual creatures who are only supposed to receive, you know, from the man. And so I think that what was troublesome about Beyonce's song for most people, most Christians, is like this in-your-face female sexuality. And at the same time, I think that it brings up a conversation of our generation. But at the same time, you cannot divorce her from the system in which she emerges, which is exploitation of women and exploitation of female sexuality, and the many ways that we can experience sexuality and also eroticism, which is not just, it does not just come from sex itself, like the act of having sex, but all pleasures in life, where it's via your job, reading books, like all the different ways that we can receive pleasure, that God has given us the ability to receive pleasure, and we just tend to focus on one kind of pleasure, which I think is extremely problematic.
And I relate to, I definitely embrace the core of what you're expressing. I guess I'm 47, and so I'm looking at it from having gone through my dirty 20s, survived the 30s and anchored down, and then gotten into a reflective place in my 40s. And I guess the sad part for me, I understand Beyonce as an artist, and I see her more, you know, as an artist than anything. But the sad part for me is that she has taken the leap to be in a marital unit, and very few of the hip hop artists that are, you know, and there's a whole push to worship at that altar. They're not worshiping at the Lord's altar. Is actually a big push to worship at the altar of hip hop. So I was disappointed that Drunken in Love, like, had she done that, like, instead of the previous video, you know, which was Crazy in Love, which I actually see the two videos really as the same. Had she done it then it probably wouldn't have even fazed me. But the reason it fazed me, I said, here we have an artist who really was a protected artist. You know, Beyonce hasn't lived out any of this. She actually was, you know, went to private school. You know, she was always, you know, going to auditions and training. Like, this is a protected individual in many, many ways. And she partnered with someone that, you know, did grow up in the projects and did have to, you know, kind of, you know, do the street thing and sell drugs or whatever. All right. Why now? Why launch this as we're looking at a proliferation of just young women really kind of, you know, as they're coming of age, not even finding themselves in being sexualized, being objectified all the time. So that's where I felt really sort of disconnected.
I agree. I couldn't relate to Beyonce. Like, I don't think that song spoke to me at all, right? Like, I think that's another thing that I was saying is, like, when I think of love, I think of the love of Jesus Christ. And so when I think about love, that's all I can really think about. And I think that the tendency is to think that, like, that's what we want. And I mean, we live in an age, it's just a very complex conversation. I don't think that we can really even pinpoint it to one, you know, idea or notion. But, like, from what I hear from her perspective is like, well, I felt like I've been making music for other people, and now it's time for me to make music for myself. And, you know, when I think about ministry and I think about being an artist or, you know, whatever you do, like, are we really ever doing it for ourselves, right? Like, we're always doing it for other people, you know, and we're always trying to bless someone else. And so I think that I disagree with her on that, in that point, on that point that she made. And I was just thinking about myself. And I feel like everything that we do impacts other people, and nothing that we do should be selfish. It should just be for our own self edification and glory. You know, everything that we do is to uplift, encourage, and bless other people. So,
well, I learned from a previous interview that you had that you're a grandma baby.
I am.
And I used to teach over at Orr High School, and that school just happened to be Chicago Avenue, Pulaski, and it was just full of grandma babies. And you always use the grandma babies because it was just stuff that they did, they wanted to do, but they really couldn't, they really couldn't do it because, Lord forbid, that grandma come up to this school. And so I'm curious, but also there was a beauty about them because there was still like a little bit of innocence and just kindness, manners that was sort of reinforced. So how has that helped you as you journeyed, because now you're saying, okay, I kind of was burdened by some of that, and then, I bump it sometimes. I kind of rebel against it a little bit, but now you're getting in a place where you it seems like you're coming into a place of peace with it and getting wise in your life. So how has being a grandma baby been a plus?
I don't even think it was more so being a grandma's baby, but more so like being the youngest child.
Okay.
I think I have two older sisters, and like being the youngest child and hearing the lessons that my grandmother told them and them not listening to them and then looking at the consequences that came from not listening taught me something about my life and like learning that like I didn't want to go down that path and that they experienced extreme pain and hardship because of it. And so I think there's a benefit and a blessing with being the youngest.
Okay.
And because honestly, my grandmother and I didn't have the most healthy relationship growing up. And so I think most of what I learned came from watching and observing the mistakes that other people made around me.
It sounds like you have a sensitivity to that because some people are in families and they're generationally doing the same thing. The grandma went to jail, the grandpa would do it, such and so, like they just repeat it. What is it in you that makes you that sensitive? Or have you not figured it out?
I think it's really complicated. I think growing up, ever since I was a little girl, I knew that I wanted to, like, I remember, like, being in preschool or kindergarten telling my grandparents that I wanted to go to, like, Whitney Young. Like, that was a dream. And then when I got to 8th grade and I was applying to high school, like, God sent me to boarding school. And so, like, I think it was the ability to get away, to be taken away from a situation and then being able to experience life in a different way. And then coming back home, then it gives you a new perspective always, right? It's like looking outside, becoming the outsider of your situation, and then looking in the window, like you begin to see things differently. And I definitely think that played a key role in my transition and with who I am today. It gave me a different appreciation for my grandparents because our relationship completely changed when I went my first year of high school away from home and then coming back. Then you begin to, then those life lessons that they teach you become very real to you. That's when my relationship with God really became a real thing because I didn't have my grandparents to rely on to pray for me or to, be there to encourage me. I had to be all of those things for myself and with God. And, that's when that relationship with God became so strong. And I really learned to be dependent on God and for God to really be my best friend. Because I was in a completely new place, a completely different environment with extreme privilege around me, and that was something that I was very uncomfortable with, and it was new to me. I was behind academically because I came from a very poor elementary school, and so it was just a lot of struggle in that. And so just coming from having a very strong grandparents my grandfather was a sharecropper in Arkansas, and my grandmother is from Kentucky. So, seeing them literally pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, I was like, I can do this. My grandfather taught himself how to read. I can do this.
Yeah, it is a beauty in sharecroppers' children. Growing up in Detroit, I remember, actually my family was a small family. It was only 4 of us. But most of those families, and the Winings are from Detroit, they was 8, 10, 13 kids. If you know what I'm saying? The average family had at least 8 children. And they were all, sharecroppers kids that, got pulled it together, saved enough money. Motor City was popping in. You didn't need an education to get a job in the auto plant. You could own a home and sustain family. And so you're right. That was they're very resilient and dream. When I think about dream planters, they plant seeds, but my God, they really, really plant dreams and water them. They see them flower all the way through. So I and that comes through actually in your spirit. I want to ask you, when did you figure out you had the gift of singing? Because I heard this song. I've heard a couple of mixes of it, but I love you a cappella. When did you know this? I got a gift for this.
When did I know? I've been singing in church like all my life. Like honestly, I cannot remember a moment when I didn't sing. And I started off just singing with my sister in church, and then like I was in the children's choir. And before my mother was on drugs, like she did the Vacation Bible School, and so, like my mother like really like music ministry was like the way we communicated with God. And so like as I like battled with my mother being on drugs and like feeling like abandoned, singing was the way that I prayed. And so like it just kind of, and I think when I figured out it sounded good, it was just like the way people will respond to you, like, oh, it really touched me. You have a beautiful voice. And I think
you like little old me.
Yeah, right.
For
like
real?
I wasn't even thinking about, like I think it was just like it was a way that I released all the emotions that were around me, and even now, like I'm actually very shy, and I think people find that like so shocking, but I'm a very shy. I'm a performer. I'm a minister, and so like I'm a very shy minister because it's like that's a very vulnerable place for me. Like singing takes me to a very vulnerable place, and so when I'm asked to sing in front of people or to invite them into my vulnerability, it is very uncomfortable. And I think that the beauty of this thing going viral is that I have no intention. I had no goals of like being popular or anybody knowing my name. I just love to worship God, and I really, truly, honestly love people, and I love to like hear their stories and be in community with them, and because that's what life is about. It's like being in community with other people, and I really thank God for this opportunity to just be in community with people that I would have never known.
Right.
And like to hear their stories, they like flooding my inbox, telling me about their testimonies and blessing me. Like, like that is just such an amazing experience. I think what's wrong with my generation is that we don't like to listen to each other. We don't like to listen to
and they also don't like to listen to their elders either. They don't believe that they can learn anything from those that were before them.
Yes, and like the fact that I asked my grandpa to tell me, he didn't volunteer to tell me his life story. I sat down and I would just probe and ask questions like, so where are you from? What was it like growing up? And like, you were a sharecropper? I was like, oh my God, Grandpa, like you're the people that I read about in my history books. Like, to like ask those questions and train ourselves to want to know our histories, because you cannot know your future without knowing your past. And like Sankofa, right? And it's just like being aware of like looking back to go ahead. Like you cannot move forward without looking back. And so
it does help shape identity and strengthen you in a way that even you could not imagine. Just knowing that you are a part of that line, and from that line came this. And so I definitely embrace what you're saying there. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, you said something interesting. You said I never even, thought of being popular or, having all these people contact me. And so what are you doing with all that? Because that's a lot. Do you know what I'm saying? It's and what's happening to you is a small scale from, what happens to an entertainer who one night is a nobody and the next night blows up. But essentially it's the same. So how are you managing that? What are you doing with that energy?
I think on a very practical scale, I just try to message everyone back and open myself and invite myself up to be a part of their communities and a part of their world, because surprisingly, it really matters whether or not you respond, and people are very grateful to hear from you. And I think that that's what I'm practically trying to do, and just praying for ways to just continue to be used by God. I think just remaining a humble spirit and servant, and just to know that God could have used anyone in that moment, that it was nothing, particular or special about me. And I think that's one of the things that keeps you humbled, is that God can do God's work without you. And so to be used by God is a blessing, and to be invited in that space is a blessing. And so you just stay humble and love on God's people. And so what I'm trying to do is just to create a community of people who love God and want to share, the love of God with each other. And so I hope that that's what the page that I created is meant to do. So I'm working on just continuing letting God minister through me, through songs, through ideas. I'm working through theological concepts that I hope to share with the community and just invite people into our conversations about God. Like, I think that as ministers, we underestimate the ability of the parishioners. Like, we underestimate the community in which we preach to, that they're not able to think for themselves. And so I am a firm believer in knowledge coming from, that we learn from each other. Like, this is a constant, engagement of intellectual thought, and that people experience God in very real ways that they can articulate with words, and they want to share it with you. And so I just hope to create that space. Well,
one thing that the song does, the flipping of the script, because I heard the original one, and then and I'm very careful, especially at this juncture in my life. And by this time I've survived all kinds of different kind of storms, and it doesn't matter. You can just imagine. But and then God has loved me so much. I've also, in the midst of all of that, had great success in almost everything I ever wanted to do. It's always come to fruition. When I was in some sort of righteous alignment, when I was, following some sort of guide that He laid out for me. But I'm very careful about what I take in my spirit. I do consider the spirit very, very, very frail. Much of it, what I believed as a young person, really got reinforced when I became a teacher. And, like you, I would, some kid would come to the door and your hair is pretty. And next thing I know, they're coming to my door every day. And I'm like, okay, I'm not okay with that. But it's like, I was like the first person that said it. Like, they just wasn't used to having anybody say anything nice. Or, you give a little trinket as a gift. Okay, I heard today was your birthday. You just give a little card with a little, and this was major, and I was surprised at, what love can do. And, as much as God is correct, He corrects us, he can, He definitely gives us a roadmap. He is the essence of love. And so I said, oh, my goodness, like that is powerful when you're able to channel that. Now, when you take too much of that toxin in, then you stop really shining, you stop displaying it, and then people come, they like your light, and they come and they tell their stories and they're depositing something in you. How do you manage keeping LaThelma clean? Do you understand? Because the heart wants to answer every email, respond to every person. What do you have in place to keep that spot in yourself safe?
I think being in community with other people who do what we do, I think that's really important. I have a wonderful, supportive partner who prays for me and supports me, and I think that who I can be very transparent with, and also I stay surrounded. When you say, like, who were the women, around you to support you, like, I stay surrounded by strong, spiritual women who are constantly praying for me and uplifting me. Because you need your place of transparency, and you need your place where you can be you. Because I think, like you said, like, when you give and give and give, eventually you become bankrupt. So where are you getting refilled? And so it's just important that you have like-minded people around you who know what you do, who are investing in what you do, and there to support and encourage and pray for you.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and I also just am honest about my humanity, right? Just honest about my vulnerabilities. Like, if I can't respond to someone, I'm like, I don't respond. Like, I stay very attuned to where my spirit is, and if I can't respond, I don't get on Facebook. I don't look at the messages. I don't participate or engage until I feel spiritually healthy. I think that's really important because we give so much of ourselves and we don't. Make it so you do your devotion.
So you say you keep you work. Not only do you kind of have a team around you, but you also kind of keep a healthy pulse on where LaThelma's at on the daily. Yeah, because some people do forget that. They forget and they think they can do the ever ready thing, and it does sort of make you crash. That's interesting. Yeah. That's very mature. Especially for your age group at this point, that you even know, that you're even aware that that's a necessary thing to do.
Oh, for sure.
So what's next?
What's next?
What's next? Because one, I was shocked you didn't have this thing in the MP3. I was like, what? No MP3.
Yeah, seriously. Like, that's how, like, that's
how just innocent it was.
Yes, like, it was I had no ulterior motive. Like, like, people. I'm sure people see it every day. They're like, oh, he's trying to, like, create some name for herself. But literally, I did not. I literally sang in my chapel at the seminary that I go to. Was recorded by someone who goes to the seminary. It was just a very basic thing, and so I'm working on preparing myself to put it on MP3 and also other projects that God has given me. This season is a season of writing and just ministering, to myself. And I think when you're very attuned to the ways in which God is growing and stretching you, then that's when you share out of that vulnerability, out of that pain that you're going through. And that's what people really resonate with. So I have a couple of projects coming up, and I'm excited about collaborations. I'm just trying to finish this semester out strong, and because I believe in education. So just, working to finish that and then put out some more videos and MP3s and get some studio time, stuff like that.
Okay, so you actually see this as a place, at least for now. I know over the years, I've evolved into a lot of things, and I feel so blessed. Like sometimes I look back at in junior high at Longfellow, my friends had written in the book, because I was always a person that was interested in a whole bunch of stuff. But that's kind of discouraged a lot in black kids. It's like you almost get told, look, it's only about 4 things we good for. Target yourself toward that and shut up. But I was always a person that wanted to try a little bit of everything. And so I would look back at my junior high book, and my friends wrote, you'll be a doctor, a lawyer, a football player, a singer, a dancer, an actress. And the hilarious thing with LaThelma is I've pretty much done all this stuff. Just sort of, and all of it comes and it goes. I am, like you, very I'm not shy, but I can be introverted as it applies to writing. I'm a long-time writer, was an early reader, early writer, and I finally became a published author. And that was so masculine to me, but it was very innocent, just like you. Like, it was just something I wanted to do. But, I wasn't necessarily trying to, sell 1 million books or anything. I just felt like, I have children. I have friends. I want to at least, even if I just do an Emily Dickinson where they find me dead and they go into my closet and they go, oh, here's her writing, that's fine. But if it does something grander, that's fine. And like you, people have said, oh, the way you phrase things touched me. I thought, well, maybe I have something here. But not so much in being an author, but just in the ability to write. So from that, I've continued on evolving, speaking. Now it's just the radio station. There's all these different things just flowing in the talent as God sees fit. So some stuff goes away, then other stuff flowers up. Besides singing, besides the ministry, what else? What is something that you would want to do that everybody would say, LaThelma want to do that?
I just feel like
you know what I'm talking about?
Like the one thing that I would want to do.
Yeah, it's that thing that you actually are interested in, and somebody would say, she'd do that?
Wow. I'm trying to think. I feel like I'm very, very. I accept all the diversity thing, the diversity of things that I like to do. So I'm trying to think about. I think people wouldn't believe that I want to be a mom.
Okay.
Which is really funny. I think that it's just because I'm really into liberation, and so people just equate me with anti everything that is traditional or whatever. But honestly, with I want to get a PhD and I want to teach gender and women's studies and also preach and sing and do a lot of community work. So as also I want to get married and have kids, and so perhaps for people who know
I'm here to tell you that you could do all that.
I could do all of that.
You can do all of that. I will, I do all of that. The only thing is you just don't do it. You don't do it at the same time.
Right.
That's the only thing. So 2 of them will be there, 1 will go away. You're doing 4 of them, 2 disappears. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, but you can do all of that.
That's
and some. Yeah. And he'll make you do it, too, when you don't want to. Because it was never my intention to be a teacher. I wanted to be a writer and a dancer.
Oh, wow.
And I've been a teacher. And when I think back where I was teaching somebody something on the playground, it was always there. He had always given me the gift. I was just always rebuking it. I was running from it. He said, yeah, okay. You still don't teach. Well, as we wrap up, I don't know, you might not have it in you. Can you just sing a few lines for us? A farewell or something?
The song or just of any song?
Well, any song really, because the thing is, your voice is haunting. It's beautifully haunting. I mean, it's one thing, when you go to the studio. It's lots of people that go to the studio and they get cleaned up so good, and it's amazing. You hear them in concert, and you start asking for your money back, for real. And there's other people that, and when the first thing comes to mind in terms of a haunting voice was Phyllis Hyman for me. I heard her at a concert, and she whistled. She said she grew up with her mom whistling to her. That was something common that, and we don't think about whistling, but people can whistle and make you cry, okay?
Wow.
And she just said, she just went back to take us back to her upbringing, and girl, she started whistling, and I mean, you would have, swore somebody was holding a flute. She was just incredible. So, it didn't necessarily take words. It was just that God-given gift to touch hearts, to convict, to make us lament. It was there, and so it doesn't matter. However you want to wrap this up, just 10 seconds, 30 seconds, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think this song is on my heart. It's I love him. And I like to be near God, so I'll share this one. I am thine, O Lord. I have heard thy voice, and it told thy love to me. But I long to rise in the arms of faith and be closer drawn to thee. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to the cross where thou hast died. Draw me nearer, nearer, blessed Lord, to thy precious bleeding side.
Beautiful, LaThelma. I want to thank you so much for giving up time to chat with some lady that contacted you on the internet.
I love it. It blessed my heart. I was so excited. Thank you for sharing.
And listen, my husband is a person that he came out of Cabrini Green, and so he always has just a lot of that urban edge to him. And and a lot of it, as he's walked with the Lord, he's tried to release a lot of it. But there's a little piece of that, honestly, is going to be in him. It's just going to be a little bit of hardcore rap bubbling up in this brother, and I know that, and I still love beyond that with him. But he liked that song, and he knows I'm always Miss Political, yada yada yada. So I said, babe, I want you to hear this, and it broke him down.
Wow.
And I said, oh, my gosh, she done broke down him. And he was just like, baby, can you send it to me? I said, well, I can only, just forward you the YouTube video. And to hear him walking around singing it, because, he'll have his beats on, and, every other line is freak, this, that. And he was just like, I loved it, wow. I really loved it. So I thank you so much. You've been listening to Beyond the Surface Radio. And LaThelma C.Armstrong, look out for her. She's coming. And until we chat again, be safe in God's grace.
Amen.
Thelma. Bye.
Bye-bye.